the first thing I wanted to jump into was the AP poll. Was just released, I think, a couple days ago, 2 days ago, maybe. And want to preface before we get into it, right? We all understand that the AP poll has basically zero impact on what happens with the season. My interpretation is it's just something for us to, as fans, to talk about, to get excited about, to go back and forth on Twitter and social media, things like that. So it's just something for us to talk about, similar to the first college football playoff rankings, right? Like that, it's just something for us fans to kind of talk about. But I had put a poll in the on the Michigan Football, the Voice College Football channel about where Michigan was ranked and what everyone, what the fans thought about it. And 53% of people, of the voters, thought that Michigan was about right at number 8, and 31% put that they were too low. So over half of people felt like the number 8 ranking was just about right. I think there were some teams there that were a little overrated, but for Michigan, I think they were about right. If I were doing a ranking, I probably would have them maybe 6 or 7, but it'd be pretty close to where they are. I think they are legitimately a top 10 team in the country, and I think when the season is done, they will still be a top 10 team in the country. What are your thoughts on just mainly the ranking, and you can also give us your opinion on the AP poll if you'd like.
Well, my opinion is that prior to 1998, it meant everything. So we've come a complete one end of the spectrum to the other in regards to what value does this have? Because unless it has impact on perception that affects things in people's minds and the playoff committee and all that, we can conjecture that forever. It has zero impact. It means nothing. Okay. Like I say, 1997, it meant everything. It was almost like pole position. If you started high in the poll, and as long as you didn't give your position up, and the best case example of that was in 2004. USC and Oklahoma started 1 and 2, and Auburn started 19, and they all went undefeated. And Auburn just hit a ceiling. They just bumped into those two, and basically, if you established your position, you were going to ride that home. And then of course it was part of the BCS formula, and then we get to the playoff, and we've got a committee selecting. So, does this impact perception of the committee? Of course, we've got rankings in front of names when we see matchups. That's all conjecture. So it doesn't mean anything is the bottom line. It technically means nothing. So I have no issue with anybody voting any team anywhere. Like, people have all sorts of that they get all up in arms. That I know Paul Feinbaum made a comment about Notre Dame this week, that it was a joke that they were ranked in the top 10, which I don't really know where that comes from. They're ranked in the top 10 or 15 at the end of the season almost every year. They're going to have a good team this year. They just went 11-1. I don't know why it's a joke that they're number 10 in the top 10 in the country, according to him. If somebody wanted to vote Kansas number 1 in the first, it makes no difference. That's fine. Somebody wants to go crazy and Kansas is 1, Syracuse 2, Rutgers 3 on down the line. Hey, that's great. As long as when they start playing, the results impact your poll and it's logical, then it becomes logical after that. In the preseason, it makes no difference to me. Do I think Michigan's one of the 8 best teams in the country? I believe they are 6 in a coach's poll and 8 according to the AP. I think that's about where they stack up. I think they're one of the 5 to 8 best teams in the country.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's a couple comments of people liking the preseason polls, people not liking them, fine with Michigan at 8. And I was on the live stream for the Iowa channel with you and Corey yesterday, and there was a viewer in there that had mentioned multiple times the preseason polls are super important, and I had asked them, like, why do you say that? And there was no real rationale. It was just, it's super important. I just kept trying to get, like, why do you feel that way? Like, feel however you want, but I was super curious as to why do you feel that way, and never ended up getting to the bottom of it. But it's one of those things where rank them where you want. A lot of it in my mind is impacted of how did you play last season, which that should factor in a bit, but it shouldn't be everything. But like you said, at the end of the day, where it stands today, it doesn't really have a big impact. There's not there's not much to take from it besides, like you mentioned, though, the Ohio State and Notre Dame game where you get to see, what is that, number 2 and number 5 or whatever the case may be. Like, that part will be pretty cool, but other than that, Michigan's chances of making it to the college football playoff are impacted in no way by them being too high or too low, or exactly where they are with the AP poll.
Yeah, I know a lot of people take it as a respect factor. They get annoyed or put off by the lack of respect that they draw from that.
Yeah. And I would imagine if you're a coach, you probably want to be ranked much lower than you really think you are, just to have that motivational factor of, chip on the shoulder. Nobody, respects us. And maybe that's an overplayed hand, but I mean, I could imagine there being some benefit to that.